What's going on, guys? Graham Gius Matthews here with FanSided Daily DDT.com, and ahead of SmackDown this coming Friday, we're talking to one of the newest members of the roster, Raquel Rodriguez. Raquel, what's going on, and how does it feel to be called one of the newest members of SmackDown?
It's amazing. I mean, I've said it before, and everybody kind of knows that when you get signed to NXT, of course, the goal is to make a name for yourself in NXT and really do your best there, but also make it to Raw or SmackDown. And so to finally have this opportunity to be a part of the Blue brand, I'm so excited. I'm excited to spice up the women's division a little bit and start to get knowing the rest of my locker room buddies and see how everything kind of unfolds for me. It's going to be it's already started off really, really exciting. So I'm getting more and more anxious every time another Friday rolls around.
Yeah, I mean, we're just getting into it here. You just started on SmackDown just 2 weeks ago. So it's still a new experience for you and everyone watching, of course. And with that being said, I mean, you talked about before, you mentioned there was like a video that went up on WWE.com, like right after you debuted. It went up about a week ago, the behind the scenes of your arrival, for more details on how you kind of felt going into that moment. And this has been a long time coming for you too. It's not like you just signed to the company last year. You've been with WWE since late 2016. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I started at the PC in, I think, October of 2016.
Wow. So talk about that. I mean, it's got to mean more after all these years to be making it to the main roster, and just talk a little about it. Obviously, you can go on forever about your journey and the ups and the downs over the last 6 years, Mae Young Classic, everything else NXT. But how much more meaningful is it to finally make it after all this time and to know that you've been a success up to this point?
Yeah, I think it is part of having that long journey. And, we do stay at the PC because not everybody comes from a wrestling background. A lot of people come from sports or from something else. So, they like to use the term paying your dues, and everyone's, had their different life that has brought them to this position in this time right now. And so for me, having not just already gone through like college and basketball and been through all of that, but then also been through a pretty long season at NXT and learning and growing. I think it honestly, as long as it did take, it's something that I feel like I'm needed to grow, not only as a superstar, but to grow as a human being as well. And to know how to carry myself and handle myself and keep myself in a position that I am comfortable with, and that I am happy to be able to produce a product that everyone would, like and love and grow with as well. And I think that's what makes me a little bit different, is that I have a little bit more of a story. I think people can relate to me a little bit more when it comes to really struggling to get what you want, but it makes this that much sweeter. I know that I've earned this position. I know that I've worked my ass off, to not use a better term. And I've sacrificed a lot in my life and in my personal life, but I've made it here and I've earned this position, and nobody can take that away from me.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, the journey that you had is really cool. And I think now is such a perfect time too, because you've been in NXT for just over 5 years now, but it wasn't really until 2020 when you linked up with Dakota Kai, obviously a year ago, winning the NXT Women's Championship, winning the tag team titles twice. It feels like now is the perfect time for Raquel Rodriguez to be on Raw, on SmackDown, and kind of going into this main roster experience. Did you have a preference between the Blue brand and the Red? Not that you really have a choice, I guess, but did you have any like thoughts on either brand? Or was it like really wherever they put me is fine with me?
Honestly, to me, both of them have their pros and their cons. You know what I mean? There's not really any cons to either of them.
Sure.
But going to Raw, obviously, I would be able to hang out with my best friend, Rhea Ripley, and going to Raw, I'd be able to see a few more people that I've grown with in NXT as well, like Bianca Belair. But SmackDown as well, I get to join my friend Aaliyah. I get to hang out with Shayna Baszler, who Shayna and we've had a couple of matches in NXT. I've kind of always looked up to her as well. We always joke around at the fact that when we were all at NXT, it was her, Rhea, and I that had our own little champ rack every time we had to do gym at the PC. So it's awesome to be able to see these people again and to spend time with them, because being at NXT while they have been on the road, it's been really hard to even just keep up with each other. So just getting the opportunity to be on, I really had no preference at all. I'm excited that it's the Blue brand though. I really am. I don't know, SmackDown just has always had a little bit more of like an attitude to it, and then like a more laid back kind of cool attitude. It's different. It's just different from Raw, and that's what I'm excited for.
Yeah, it's a different atmosphere for sure. And you mentioned earlier, like all the friends you have on the main roster, obviously most notably Rhea Ripley. How did you preface that? Did you tell her, hey, I'm coming to the main roster, and she's all excited, and then you tell her you're going to SmackDown? She's like, oh, darn it. Like, how did that conversation go?
I didn't even tell her.
Oh, really? So she just sees you on Friday nights? Wow.
Yeah. So what's funny is the Friday that I got called, to be the call up, the official call up. I've always, and I've learned this from my long experience in NXT, is when they tell you something might be coming up, you never know. Things change at the drop of a hat here. Things can just, things can get canceled, things can get scratched, whatever. So I didn't want to tell anyone until it actually happened for me. Wow. So it was kind of funny that Friday night she like messaged me and she goes, "Oh, I'm just upset that you're not on the red brand, but I'm so happy for you." So like, I mean, I know she was going to support me either way, you know, and like you said, sometimes the decisions aren't made up to us, but I wanted to make sure that it was actually going to happen before I said anything to anyone.
That's a good approach to take. Like you said, anything can change. We hear about people coming up, we don't see them, or we don't hear about people coming up and they show up anyway. Like that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to just wrestling in general, but specifically WWE. You mentioned you got the call on Fridays. Did you get the call that day, or did you know a couple of days ahead of time?
I knew maybe a couple days ahead of time. It was like right after we had just won the tag titles at Stand and Deliver. But again, I knew that I still had my business at NXT and I wanted to make sure I fully saw all of that through, whether it meant just having that one match on Tuesday or continuing on for the next couple of weeks and being on two brands. I was totally okay with that. So I kind of knew ahead of time, but again, I don't like to get my hopes up. I don't like to say much until it actually happens.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people were saying you showed up on Friday. It was a crazy week for you, really, in the span of 7 days in your native Texas, no less, when you won the tag team titles on Saturday at Stand and Deliver, you lose them on Tuesday. And then on Friday, you're on SmackDown. So it really was a whirlwind of a week, and kind of going from Stand and Deliver to Tuesday. People were wondering, why would you guys only be champions for 3 days? And my argument always was, I mean, you won the titles in your, like I said, your home state of Texas. So, I mean, that probably would make sense. How meaningful was that moment for you to win the tag team title? Because the first time you guys were just kind of given the tag team title, so you kind of had to earn it this time. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was great. It was really a come all the way around type of moment for me, because like you said, back in 2020, when I paired up with Dakota, it was something that really catapulted me as a performer and my career. And being partnered with her has been an amazing journey all in itself, because I've learned so much from her. I've grown with her. We have become like really close, tight-knit friends, and we wish the best for each other nonstop. And so getting that opportunity to be reunited before one of the biggest stages of them all, one of the biggest weekends, WrestleMania weekend, going into Dallas, Texas, getting to have that be reunited after like 8 months of fighting and not being on the same terms. It was really cool. It was really cool. I think I cried a lot that weekend. And I cried a lot on Tuesday too, just because Tuesday when we lost the titles, I knew that, this might be it for me here in NXT. And I kind of looked around and I was like, I don't really know anything else other than the Performance Center. And that's what's crazy, is because I went to Dallas and Stand and Deliver this year, and that was only the second time I've ever worked in a Coliseum in front of that many people. The first time was my debut. Right after my debut, COVID hit, quarantine hit, we were in lockdown. I went from performing in front of 3,000 people making a debut to performing in front of 0 people. And then still being here with NXT and not doing our road shows anymore, not being on the loops or getting to travel as much and getting to see new fans and see new places. It was really hard and a moment for me to really understand, like, wow, like this is really it. So it definitely was a long week for me, but I wouldn't change any of it. It was really cool to win the titles in Texas, nonetheless, with my family there and a lot of my close friends there. And of course, I did a gear inspired by the Queen Selena, because not only did she have her big 25th coming up, but she also had a birthday coming up. And it just felt right to me to represent her, because she is a Mexican American. I'm a Mexican American. She's from 2 hours north of where I'm from. I feel like I've been on the same kind of journey as her, where it's never been given to us. It's never been easy. Nothing has ever just been handed over. It's always been work for what you can. Forget the stereotypes everyone's trying to put you in. You're never Mexican enough for the Mexicans. You're never American enough for the Americans. But I'm Tex-Mex, and that's what I offer. And I'm going to give you 100% of just Texican right here.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that too, because I feel like SmackDown historically, dating back to like the mid 2000s, has always had that like Latino flavor to it a little bit, like with it being Rey Mysterio's show for a long time, and so many other people that kind of came after him. So SmackDown just kind of feels like a great fit. I mean, even if you went to Raw, that would be a great fit too. But I mean, even with SmackDown, it's just got a great history of that sort of thing. And I love the message you just sent right there. And as far as winning the titles in Texas, such a great moment, and it was a good match to boot. I was just about to ask you about how being bookended from debuting in front of fans, winning the titles back in your first show in front of 3,000 people. It's a really cool like NXT experience in all the years that kind of preceded that as well. And just kind of everything else that kind of happened in between. Would you talk about like when you talk about like the fans and the lack of fans over the last 2 years? Obviously it's tough in the moment and it sucks. Like even as fans watching, it sucks. But in retrospect, is it a fun challenge to know that you kind of worked through that and was able to have like your best period ever, a 6-month reigning women's champion with absolutely no fans? I think that's a nice feather in the cap for you.
Oh yeah, 100%. And not only to just have that position in front of a very limited amount of fans, but it's also being trusted with that position, because that's a big position to be in. You know, not only are you the face of the women's division in NXT, but you're also responsible for a lot of what the fans are going to perceive when it comes to women's wrestling in NXT. And I had a lot to carry after, of course, the stars that were before me: Io Shirai, Rhea Ripley, Shayna Baszler, Bianca Belair, Lacey Evans, like Charlotte, Sasha, Bailey. They all came from NXT, and they are all these amazing women and these amazing representations of champions. And so here I am, and I'm like, okay, they are entrusting me with this position. They're putting the responsibility on my shoulders. Can I carry it? Hell yes, I can. And I'm going to do my very best, and I'm going to stay true to who I am. And I'm just going to keep pushing through, because no matter what's happening on the outside world right now, I know that what the fans need is an escape. And that's what we're providing for them, because it's hard to not be able to leave your house and not be able to go to shows. And I 100% know, because I was in that position too.
Yeah.
And so just to be able to come out every week and give my very best as a performer and as an entertainer, and make sure that my fans were also connecting with me at the same time, it was a challenge. And I hope I lived up to it. I feel like I did my very best when it came to that.
Yeah, I would agree. Even coming from a fan standpoint, I'm biased talking to you here right now, but I mean, especially if you look at the lineage of the women's championship, I mean, they were all great champions, but I feel if you look at the lineage, a lot of those women were already established coming into the company and already had, you know, a lot of independent experience and stuff like that. Kind of for yourself as almost like a homegrown WWE talent in the last couple of years, going from the Mae Young Classic and being champion for a substantial period of time too. We have a lot of good matches on the takeovers and everything like that, making it extra impressive with the run that you had. And now seeing it where you are right now is a really cool kind of full circle moment. And obviously now we're seeing you on Fridays as Raquel Rodriguez, no longer Raquel Gonzalez. A lot of name changes going on right now, but with the Rodriguez name, was there any inspiration on it from your end, or was it just a name that you were given and it's like, all right, cool, we'll run with it?
You know, it was kind of just given with me, and I was like, cool, let's run with it. But I'm not mad at it, because it's funny. Rhea was at SmackDown this past Friday with me, and so we were just chit-chatting. I was like, oh my gosh, now we're both R&R. Oh my gosh. So now we have the same initials. Yeah, we have the same initials. We have the same first initial as well. It's like, if we ever do by chance become a tag again, we got to start thinking of funny tag names for this. So we're like, maybe Rip Rod Rip. I don't know. The options were endless for us, but I'm totally cool with it. Like, you know, it's a name. At the end of the day, people are going to look at me and see my face and put my face to what they have already established or what they have made up in their minds about my character and who I am as a persona. So I think the name is cool. I'm for it.
And you get to stick with Raquel too, so it's not like drastically different. So I mean, it's somewhat similar, which is fine. But that's cool. You mentioned the Rhea Ripley thing. We actually never on TV saw you guys as a tag team. Obviously, on the house shows and off screen, you guys have been best friends for a long time. That's got to be something you want to explore now in the main roster, right? At some point, when you guys are on the same show, be a tag team at some point, hopefully.
I definitely. We both have talked about it so many times that we hope that hopefully one day, God willing, our journeys will connect again, and we will be able to put it on the big screen and put all the fun stuff we used to do as a tag. Like we have, when we both started off at NXT, you know, you mentioned she had already come with a little bit of experience and I was still kind of green, but we were pushing so hard for each other and wanting to be there for each other that we made all these really weird, funny videos while we were out doing coconut shows. You know, we were the Grinch, and we asked some people to participate, and we played pranks on them for Christmas, and we would make these funny promo videos after matches, or we would take these silly pictures as her as a koala and I'm an armadillo, because those are where we came from. Those are the animals that we could think of that were, you know, kind of cute at first, but they're very vicious. If you look up the videos, koalas and armadillos can be very vicious animals. So I think that is something that we would definitely want to share more of, because even when we had our feud in NXT, I know they put snippets out to kind of help tell the story of how close we are. Yeah. And it was an amazing package that they put together for us. But that's something that we would want to do long term and really like spread it out through a period of time of showing how we relate to each other and how we got so close and why our friendship is the way it is and why we trust each other so much, and where, you know, where I lack what she gives and what she lacks where I can give and stuff like that. I think it'll help not just both of us, but it'll help us individually as well, so that, you know, just there's more of a connection.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm sure we will see that at some point, whether it be as partners or as rivals again. That last woman standing match you guys had was fantastic. So if you guys can run it back eventually on a bigger stage, would be even better. But in the meantime, people can get you every Friday, Raquel, on SmackDown on Fox. We look forward to your journey. Congrats again. And thanks for taking the time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. See you guys Friday.
Absolutely. Thanks, Raquel.